I think there's a kind of common theme, even though all our speakers are extremely varied. Everybody does have a very interdisciplinary approach. So I think this is going to make for an interesting discussion at the end. So thanks so much, Anna. So our next speaker is Dr. Anjana Khatwa. And Anjana is an earth scientist and a presenter. She has a BSc in earth science and a PhD in glacial geology and deformation mechanics. Anjana did a postdoc at the University of California studying the West Antarctic ice sheet, and also did some more research after that postdoc with Brit Ice. But it was her work with the US National Park Service that led to her engaging with the public on a real level for the first time, and discovering and developing her communication skills, which she really uses today. So Anjana has spent 15 years working on the Jurassic Coast in the south of England, developing education and engagement programs there. And in 2016, she was part of the team who won the Royal Geographical Society Silver Award for Excellence in Education. And she's also currently a finalist for the National Diversity Awards in the UK for being a positive role model in the category of race, religion and faith, which is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations on that, Anjana. And she just informed us that she's currently starting a new role as engagement lead at the Wessex Museums, which sounds really exciting. And she also just told us that this week she was on This Morning, which is a national program in the UK, with over 1.5 million viewers this week. So she really has those communication skills and a lot to teach us about how to develop. And if anybody wants to get into a TV career, this is definitely the talk for you. So Anjana, if you want to share your screen.
I actually don't. I'm going to be just as I am. Is that okay? So
absolutely perfect. No problem at all.
I'm not going to use slides. I'm actually going to chart my talk and my history and my career with rocks.
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah. So what I really wanted to talk to everybody about, the title of my talk essentially is how to talk about rocks and influence people. And I have to take you back to when I was a child, about when I was 8 years old, really. And the story begins, I grew up in Slough, which is a small town on the outskirts of London, and it's a very urban space. There are some green spaces around, but really, if you look at them, they're either parks or it's a school playing field. That was my life growing up. But that's not just that part of the story. I grew up in a very traditional Asian community, and for a lot of Black and Asian people, it's very well known that our relationship with nature is quite different to lots of other people. If you grow up in cities or urban spaces, you don't really have that exposure to nature or hiking or camping or anything like that. And that was certainly my childhood. And I grew up in that environment, but I also grew up with a feeling from my community and from my family that girls, particularly girls who wanted to do well at school or educate themselves, that just wasn't the acceptable thing. What was acceptable was to go as far as you could at school and then kind of be introduced to someone and get married and start a family. And for me, I thought to myself, that's fine, but that's not necessarily what I want. For me, it's fine if that's what, drives you. But for me, I wanted something different. And from about the age of 8, I loved rocks. I mean, I loved science, and at a very early age, I just wanted to study space and planets and astronomy. And unfortunately, that didn't work out. I wanted to be an astronaut. I was desperate to be an astronaut, but it just didn't work out, luckily. But then what happened was I was about 12 years old, and my family are actually from Kenya in East Africa. And I was walking over an ancient lava field, and I picked up 2 rocks. So this is when I was 12 years old. And I'm going to show you these rocks now. Here they are. Look at those. I picked up these rocks, and I was 12 years old when I picked up these rocks. And if I tell you that I'm in my mid-40s now, you can guess how old these rocks are. I mean, geologically speaking, they're quite young. But in the course of my life, these rocks changed my life. These rocks in my hand, isn't that amazing? I'm sure you've all got rocks at home which you can touch, and you can kind of think to yourself, that was the moment where I thought I want to be a geologist, and these are the rocks. And these craggy, sharp rocks, you can see them, they're really, really sharp. I was walking over this ancient lava field, And I thought to myself, if this was a real lava field, my legs would melt. I would be, I'd be dead. Isn't that amazing? I have quite a morbid fascination with things like that. And as I walked over these rocks, I kind of imagined what the earth must have been like when this kind of rock was forming. And I was 12 years old, and I thought that was utterly incredible. I came home from that holiday, and I changed my mind. I kind of changed my direction. I thought, well, I don't want to be an astronaut anymore. This is what I want to study. I want to study the earth. I want to know how these beautiful rocks formed. Why are they like that? And I went to school, and it was very difficult for me because my parents, and particularly my father, kind of didn't really understand where I was going with that career. Why did I want to study geography and geology? And then when the questions came up to go to university, that was when it really got difficult for me, because traditionally Asian girls, we're very protected. If you speak to a boy in the street, the gossip goes around the community, and they kind of say to you, who's that person you were talking to? I saw your daughter talking to this young man, and then the gossip just gets out of hand. But the thought of kind of going to university to study a subject that no one really understood, and to explain that to the rest of the community, that was really, really difficult. It was a huge obstacle for me to get over. But I did it. I kind of said to my family, look, I know you don't understand what I want to do, but I really love this subject. I really am passionate about it, and I know it's what I want to do. So I really fought for that right to go to university. And I went to Kingston in London, and I ended up studying for a Bachelor's of Science in Earth Sciences. So the reason why I chose Earth Sciences was because I started off actually doing geography, because I did really well at A-level geography. But I'll be honest with you, I know, I can tell you confidentially, all of you here, is that I was really, really bad at human geography. I really struggled with it. And when I talked to my tutors and I said to them, look, I'm doing geography, but I'm struggling with human geography. What are my options? They said, well, we've got this new course. And this was about, I don't know, 25 years ago. They said, we've got this new course. It's called Earth Sciences. You're going to love it. And I moved on to it. I transferred. And, it was the best thing I ever did, because Earth Sciences for me was this wonderful combination of physical geography and geology. And it meant that I could study processes that shape the earth, but also the subsurface as well, kind of understanding processes of the formation of the earth and understanding how that related to what the earth looks like today. It was a fantastic degree course. And actually, if I show you another rock, this was a really special rock that I collected. So in my third year of my earth science degree, we went to Tunisia, and I'm sure many of you might actually recognize this rock. This is called a desert rose, and it's actually also known as gypsum. And it forms in these sabkhas, these salt lakes in very dry desert environments. And what happens is that you get a salt lake with some water, and the water evaporates, and this kind of gypsum, this salt, precipitates out, and it forms these beautiful structures. I absolutely love this. And this rock, it's probably about 28 years old, and again, that's giving away my age, isn't it? But it's one of my truly treasured possessions, because it reminds me of that fight that I had to get my career, to get to that degree course, and that really mattered to me. And rocks have a story, don't they? I'm sure you've got lots of interesting rocks in your collections at home. So after my degree in earth sciences, I then said to my parents, look, I'm doing really well. I really love this subject. I want to study for a PhD. And I started to kind of dig around and explore in different universities what I might want to do. And at that point in my career, I was really interested in climate change, and I was interested in glaciers, and I was really interested in engineering geology. And I kind of approached this with my parents, my dad specifically. And it was really difficult. And I'm not sure about what many of your backgrounds are like, but my father said to me, and he regrets saying this now, but he said to me, I can't believe you want to do a PhD. Who's going to want to marry you, with a PhD? You certainly can't be cleverer than your husband, And he actually said this to me. And at the time, I was so shocked. That my dad could basically place, marriage a higher priority than education, but also that opinion that, well, why shouldn't I do a PhD, and why would that make me less attractive to somebody, you know, to get into a relationship with? It was very, very strange. But now, you know, having gone through, you know, years and years of discussions with my parents, and we've worked it all out, you know, a lot of that feeling was coming from fear. It was fear of, you know, losing this person that was very dear to them, that they wanted to, you know, my parents just wanted me to have a good life. They wanted me to make a good marriage and to be comfortable, and all those things that parents want for children. And I know this because I have children myself, but I think a lot of that reaction was coming from fear. You know, who is going to want to marry you with a PhD? And actually what happened in the end was we had to break, and I broke apart from my parents because we really disagreed at that point in my life what I should be doing, and I chose the PhD. And it was really, really difficult. So, you know, I obviously, you know, don't advocate anything, you know, to that extreme level, but for me at that time in my life, I thought, this is what I need to do. I need to make a statement about this, that geology and earth sciences matter to me so much that I'm going to do this. And actually, you know, what it's really down to is communication. And we're going to come on to why that's really important in my career in a minute. When I started my PhD, I had a whale of a time. I had a brilliant supervisor. I was at the University of Southampton, and it was just an extraordinary experience to work with brilliant, brilliant people. One of the rocks that I actually picked up on fieldwork in Iceland was this one. This is one of my favorite ever rocks. And people always say to me, did you like slice that rock up yourself? And I have to say no. On the Sanders of Iceland, and when I say sander, hopefully some of you will know what I mean by that. But these are the outwash plains that kind of border some of the ice caps. But the rocks, this is like a mudstone. The rocks have split along the bedding plains, and it's all to do with freeze-thaw action. So water seeps into those cracks, it expands at night, and then during the daytime it melts, and that causes those cracks in the rock, those plains, to basically fracture. And it's just one of my most treasured possessions. I have to hold it really carefully because I think it's going to drop into my lap and fall apart. But isn't that gorgeous? Look at that. And it's such a centerpiece. And I think rocks do that, don't they? They kind of bring out all sorts of interesting conversations. And this one certainly has in my career. So that's my rock from Iceland. And I had a great time in my PhD. Once I got my PhD, I then went off travel. You know, I thought, okay, right, here's a chance to really do something really fascinating. And I went over to the US, and I ended up working with a very well-known glaciologist. But it was very hard because I literally finished my PhD, finished my corrections, and within 2 weeks after the millennium, I was out in the States, and I was working with quite a demanding supervisor. He was a postdoctoral supervisor. He's quite demanding, but I learned a lot from him. I learned how to be a strong woman with my own voice in a very crowded place where there were lots of, you know, strong male characters, and you have to strengthen yourself inside to survive in an environment like that. And it was tough. I won't lie. It was a very, very tough environment to work in. However, having said that, I then came back to the UK, worked on a lovely project called BritIce at the University of Sheffield. And then I had another amazing opportunity to return back to the United States. And this time I went and got an adjunct professorship at the University of Utah. But alongside that, this is where the kind of shift in my career started. I actually started to get really interested in science communication and public engagement. And I was really lucky to apply for something called Geoscientist in the Park with the National Park Service. And it was there that I learned all the tricks that I needed to know about how to engage people with rocks. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. If you can afford to do internships like that, or you can get opportunities like that to learn from brilliant storytellers, especially people like the staff I worked with at the National Park Service, it changes your life. And for me, it really did, because I continued to do a few other postdocs and lecturing at the University of Utah. But then when I saw this job advertised for the Jurassic Coast, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the job was to lead and develop their education program. And I literally interviewed over the phone. In those days, what was it, 15, 16 years ago, we didn't have anything like this kind of technology. I literally was on the phone doing an interview and I got the job, and I flew back to the UK, and here I was, the new education coordinator for the Jurassic Coast. And I spent 15 years in that job. I progressed up to what we would call a learning manager, so someone that was really heading up education across this beautiful World Heritage Site. But in that job, I just honed my skills about public engagement, about how to present myself. And in 2010, I also managed to win a place onto a BBC Academy training programme for TV presenters. And this was something that I just saw in The Guardian, which is a British newspaper. And I applied for a place, and I think over 6,000 women applied. We had to submit like a show reel, like a mini video of us talking about science. And I got a place. And it was absolutely amazing. I learned all the tricks I needed to know about how to present myself and engage audiences. And it was a real privilege to be part of that training from the BBC. Being at a place like the Jurassic Coast has been an extraordinary privilege. And one of my most favourite rocks, and I know I'm coming up to the time, but one of my favourite rocks is this. It's a piece of limestone. I'm going to move my face so you can see my face at the same time. It's an ammonite, and it's about 180 million years old, possibly 200 million years old. And it's this beautiful fossil in a piece of limestone that I found about 10 years ago. And I had a friend prepare it for me. And it's rocks like this that have made my career. I basically use rocks as time machines. They are time traveling machines. And I hold these rocks and I tell people, do you know what? We're holding a piece of history in our hands, a history of the earth in our hands. And I'm able to use all of my skills and storytelling and knowledge about earth sciences to bring these rocks alive. And I was absolutely on national television a couple of days ago, Wednesday, talking about fossils to 1.5 million people viewing that program. And it was a huge privilege. And I just love what I do. I hope you've enjoyed my talk. I don't know if that alarm was telling me time was up, but I think my time is up.
Thanks so much, Anjana. That was fantastic. So inspiring. So inspiring. Your journey is really inspiring. I was wondering if you'd have any advice for people who may be in a similar situation to what you were in at the start of your career, particularly with cultural obstacles and having to stand up for yourself to follow your passions.
I do know of, well, I mean, the first thing is to reach out and talk to people like myself who you can get support from. I would also look to support from family members, because one of the key things for me was my mother was absolutely adamant that she wanted us to have an education. So you need to look within your family circles, cousins, you know, close family friends, senior leaders in your community to support your voice, because once they can start working on those barriers, and quite often they're parents, then you can start to change your mindset. But if you want to use examples or role models, I am here. You know, they can look at my YouTube videos and they can see what I've achieved. And it was all done, you know, through hardship and difficulty. But I've been through that, hopefully, so you don't have to.
That's so generous of you to give your time like that and to offer your support like that. I think that's why things like this are so important, showcasing people like yourself and saying there's people out there who may be on a similar path as you, and hopefully we're all friendly and people know that there's people here that they can reach out to. I was wondering, similarly, like similar to Anna, I suppose you changed career path or you incorporated something that may seem a bit different to what you see for yourself when you're in university. So if anybody's coming out of university or even starting university and is thinking that education or public engagement might be something they're interested in, do you think there's any good ways to go about that?
I think right now we are in the golden era of public engagement, and particularly digital public engagement. I mean, I've just moved to a new job looking at strategic learning across 4 museums in the Wessex, which is the southwest region of the UK. If you can use social media, if you've got a phone, if you've got an Instagram account, or if you like to use TikTok, you get yourself out there. If you're passionate about a rock, and here's a lovely rock. I had loads of rocks here to use, by the way. This is a beautiful Pahoi Hoi piece of, like, you know, ropey lava, solidified, obviously. I could create a TikTok video about this and talk about this for 60 seconds. And, you know, I would say something like, you know, guess how old this rock is? It's not 200 million years old. It's actually 10 years old, because I picked it up in Hawaii in 2008. And, you know, it's things like that. You know, you don't need a TV company or a production company to give you the opportunity to let people know how much you love the subject. Just do it. Just do it. Over lockdown, I created my own YouTube channel, and I created so many brilliant programs on YouTube to get my ideas out there. Ideas which I have pitched over the last 10 years to TV production companies. And do you know what they've all said? They've all said, geology is really dull, it's really boring, and nobody would ever watch your program. Honest to God, that's what I've been told. And, you know, I just thought to myself, do you know what? I'm just going to do this myself. I'm going to talk about it and produce it and research it and film it and do it all myself. And I did. And you know, I can't tell you what's going on because it's all, you know, very hush hush, but that does make a difference. You get yourself out there, you get yourself known, you get yourself on the channels, people will watch.
Yeah. I think that's, for all the pitfalls of social media, there's so many more benefits. And like you said, you can carve out that space for yourself, whatever you want to be, and you're in control of your own narrative and your own content. That's so exciting. I think we're going to move on just in the interest of time, but if anyone has any more questions for Anjana, we can come back to them at the end.